So this exercise 11D on units of area and area of a rectangle on page 637 of your textbook. Now, I'll do now questions on perimeter, which is from exercise 11C. And perimeter, remember, being the length of the outside of the shape. So for the question A, it says find the perimeter of each of these shapes. Question A, pretty straightforward. Remember that the lines, the markings on those lines, mean that the length of the line is the same. So we say, okay, well, we know that the length of the line is going to be 6 centimeters. So I can label these as 6. Oops, sorry. There we go. I can label these as 6 and 6 here. And to find the perimeter, of course, I add them together. So 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 3. Does it matter what order I add them in? No, it doesn't, because we're adding them together. Good. So the perimeter equals 6 plus 6 plus 6, which is 18, plus the 3, which is 21. Taylor, am I done? Good. Units are very, very important. You will always lose marks in any year if you don't include units. So units are very important. 21 centimeters. Good. With this one over here, what do I have to do first, Taylor? Good. We have to make sure that we add in the 4s so that we have all the lengths there. I know that these lengths here are the same as this length here because of the marking. And then?
You add the 4 and the 4 because it's equal to the other.
Yep, absolutely. So I need to make sure that I actually know what the unknown side lengths are. In this case, I know that this length here is the same as this one and this one together. So that's 4 plus 4 gives me 8. And then finally, I know this one is the same as adding this one and this one together, which gives me 10. Good. Now I add them together. Now, typically what I would do is I would add them around in a circle just to keep track of them. That's entirely up to you though. I'm going to write P equals to 8 plus 10 plus 4 plus 6 plus 4 plus 4. Add them together. 18. So it's 8 plus 10 is 18. Plus the 4 is 22. Plus the 6 is 28. Plus the 4 is 32. Plus another 4 is 36 meters. Okay. Alright, let's go through today's content. Hopefully you guys were able to complete at least question A of that do now question. But let's go through today's content on the area. So we know the perimeter is the distance around the outside of a shape, whereas the area is the amount of space in the inside of a flat shape. So flat shape we're going to be referring to as a 2D shape. So the area is the space in a 2D shape. Now the formula we use for area, if it's a rectangular shape, is A equals to L times W. Okay? L means length and W means width. So length times width. That's how we calculate the area of something. I've included a couple examples of the metric system in terms of the area. You don't have to write any of that down, but I do want you to write down this purple text that I've got over here. So this purple text, please write that down into your notebook. Thank you. While you guys are writing that down, I'll just speak at you. So the metric units of area, what we do is we use the normal metric units of distance, so millimeter, centimeter, kilometer, etc., and we add a square on top. So for example, instead of saying 5 meters, we would say 5 meters squared. Now that squared is because it's now in the second dimension. And you can imagine later on when we look at the third dimension, looking at volume, well then it'd be cubed. But for now we're going to focus on the second dimension, so we would write centimeters squared. Included a couple examples here. They're not to scale, of course. But you can see, for example, we've got 1 square millimeter, and that's what we would say. We'd say 1 square millimeter or 1 millimeter squared. They both work. And it's a 1 by 1 square. So 1 times 1 would still give us 1, but that's the idea we're looking at. Of course, if we have, for example, 1 centimeter squared, it would be a 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter squared, and etc. So we can actually apply that to any length of metric system. So kilometer, or square meter, etc. There's actually something called a hectare, which is also part of the metric system, but it's a little bit different because it's just 100 meters by 100 meters. Can I get you guys to write this one down as well? 1 hectare, or 1 HA, is 10,000 meters squared. I'm going to write that one down because it's a very particular, unique one. It's not one we use in everyday life very often. So 1 hectare, or 1 HA, equals to 10,000 meters squared. Okay, I'm assuming everyone's copied down the purple text, so I'm going to scroll down a little bit so that you guys can see the next component here. As I mentioned earlier, the formula for area is length times width. I've got this diagram over here for you guys to see, length times width. Now it applies to both rectangles and squares. Now in mathematical terms, technically speaking, a square is a type of rectangle. Technically. We don't really call it a rectangle, but it is technically a rectangle. And so when I calculate length times width, what I'm doing is I'm just saying, well, how long is it? And I multiply by how wide is it? And that applies to squares, but squares, because they have the same length as they have width, this formula also works for squares, but it's the same thing. I've included a couple of examples so that we can work through it together. So this question says that we need to count the number of squares to find the area of the shape drawn on this centimeter grid. So centimeter grid, that just means that it's 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter for each square there. So to calculate it, what I would do is, okay, I would go, I know that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 whole squares. Now I know that these two combined, right, would equal to 1. Good. So that would equal to 1 as well. So that would be a total of 6. Do I just write 6? Brody, what do I write? 6 what? What's the grid called? It's a... What's the grid called? Thank you very much. Do I just write 6 centimeters? 6 centimeters squared, because we're looking at area, aren't we? Awesome. Let's try to put this into practice in a measured situation. So find the area of this rectangle. Once again, what's my length? 10. 10 what? Millimeters. Good. And my width is? Good. My width is 4 millimeters. There we go. Not meters, millimeters. So to find the area? Good. So remember, area equals the length times width. So I times them together. Area equals to 10 times by 4, which gives me 40. Sweet. Am I done? Good. I need to write the units, which is millimeters squared. So 40 millimeters squared. All right. Next one. Key, what's the formula for this one? To find the area. Yep. And what, sorry? Times 4. Would that give me the area? Because the area, remember, length times width. So what's the length for this one? Good, 2.5. What's the width? Also 2.5. Good. So, to find the area, we multiply them together, don't we? So we say length times width, which is 2.5 times by 2.5. Okay? Next one, can someone take out their calculator and tell me what 2.5 times 2.5 is? Yes, you're more than welcome to do it, Brody. Yep. Yep. What's 2.5 times 2.5? And of course, you are allowed to use a calculator for this. You're allowed to use a calculator for these kinds of questions. Thank you very much. It's 6.25, was it? 6.25 centimeters squared. Okay, I'm going to leave this content or this exercise there. Remember that the questions on your project that require you to find the area, any rectangular paddock, will require content from here, so make sure you get that formula down if you haven't already got it down. Awesome. I want you guys to get started on exercise 11D questions, and if you finish early or if you want to complete the project questions instead, you're more than welcome to do those.